we're calling to order the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District special meeting on Tuesday, February 5th, 2019. Starting time is 6:19 p.m. and we are at the district meeting room in Watts Avenue. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Chelsea, roll call, please. And just before you do that, Director Bockham and Director Whiff told me they would not be able to be here this evening, so their absence is prearranged.
Chair McNairn,
Present.
Vice Chair Witt, Director Reed,
Yep.
Director Bockham, Director Marshall.
Present.
Okay. Item number 2, public expression of non-agendized items. Is there anyone wishing to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? Nope. Seeing none, we'll close number 2 and we'll go to item number 3. Discussion and presentation by CLA, Clifton Larson Allen, of the district's updated compilation reports for the years ended June 30th, 2014 through 2018. And Mark, I will let you make the introductions at this point.
Sure, I'd like to introduce Jeff Peak, CPA Senior Manager. I guess you have a state and local government kind of business sector there.
Yes.
And CLA, Jeff was responsible for putting together these 5 years of financial statements and footnotes on behalf of the district. You can go into more detail, but that involved not only working with the district, but with the city and the county to gather all the information. As you know, the city has the lion's share of the transactions. I think that work product speaks for itself and it was done on a timely basis. So from my standpoint, when I was looking for the district manager, this was going on. I thought everything was handled professionally, good working relationships, I think, with all of the other players, the city, the district. So I think it's great to have these documents, and saying that, I'll turn the floor over to Jeff to make the presentation.
So my name is Jeff Peak. I am a senior manager with CLA, and CLA is a national firm. We're currently ranked 8th in the country in terms of size. And of course, we were brought in to help out with doing some of the compilation reports, and then we're going to be continuing to do some work on a monthly basis starting here this month for the district and producing financial reports for them. So you should be able to get some better financial reporting on a timely manner going forward. But we thank you for the opportunity to continue to serve you, and we hope that we can continue to grow this relationship and move that forward. Today I'm just going to kind of keep things pretty high level, but I do want to just go through the 2018 financial statements, since most of the information is very similar from year to year. If you do have any specific questions, please feel free to ask me, and I'll also give opportunities to ask as we go through the statements. The first page that I wanted to go over is just our compilation report, which is on page 1. And all of this just says that we perform this under the standards in terms of compilation services and so on, and that we're not expressing an opinion on these financial statements. All that we've done is we've taken the information that was provided to us and we've prepared it into financial statements according to the standards. So we did not provide any audit type services in this manner. The next 2 pages, statement of net position, and then the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in fund net position. This is just going to be the financial information for the district, and the things that I will point out on here, because in the 2017 and 2018 financial statements, we did pick up the due from City of Ukiah portion from the settlement that occurred. And in these financial statements, there's $984,000 that is due within 1 year, which is why it's in the current portion, and then the $4 million, which is to be paid over a period of time. The other thing that I will also mention is, as part of these financial statements, there was we had to gather information in regards to how all of the different contracts and things work between the city and the district. And so in terms of the long-term debt portions, there's only a portion of the long-term debt that actually shows up within the district's financial statements. And that's because of how the language reads and basically the purchase of capacity within the upgraded facilities for the wastewater treatment plant. So the rest of the debt kind of flows through operations and does not actually show up as a liability on the financial statements. And this is an accounting treatment that is pretty standard with these types of agreements, because when you're taking a look at an operating agreement, some of the things that are built into that operating agreement are really just kind of contingencies, in case something happens. It's not truly your liability unless those events actually occurred. And then if they did occur at that point, you would have additional liabilities that would come on. But that's why in these statements, you'll see in the commitments and contingencies section, it talks about those things so that the reader of the financial statement can understand a little bit more about the potential liabilities as well as those operating agreements and how they're functioning and working between the district and the city. So I'm just going to skip over these other parts because I think that the most important thing to kind of go through here are some of the footnotes. And so I'm going to skip all the way to page 10 and then we'll go to 11. So on page 10, in the capital assets section, you'll notice that there's a line about halfway down the page called intangible assets, and it's $12,600,000. So that is actually the value of the district's additional capacity that it owns in the wastewater treatment plant. So there was a calculation that was done to take a look at what the cost was that was associated with the capacity project itself, and then a portion of that was allocated to the district under the agreements of the district owning that capacity. And so that's where that intangible asset comes from, is it's that ownership in the capacity of that additional capacity of the wastewater treatment plant. Then we have the long-term liabilities. These long-term liabilities are directly associated with the intangible assets. So back when the original agreements would have been put into place, what you would have seen come onto the books was a $12,600,000 asset and a $12,600,000 liability associated with that asset to be paid back over time to the city. So those two things are directly related to one another, but then over the past however many years it's been up to this point, it's been paid down to $9,879,000 as of June 30, 2018.
So is that capacity number you used taken right off of that original agreement signed with the city?
So there was a lot that came to that, because back when the original agreements were put into place, I don't think you would have been able to do this calculation because there wasn't enough information in place at that point in time. But then the new additional operating agreements were put into place, which actually gave percentages to what was allocated to each component, at which time we're able to estimate what the value of that is based upon how much it costs to actually construct the additional capacity itself.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's kind of how that came into play. So then on page 11, it just goes into more detail in terms of the long-term debt. And basically what ends up happening is the portion that was allocated to the district specific to that just mimics what's going on with the bonds that are payable at the city. So it's really in direct proportion to what's going on there. And then you see the future maturities going out to 2036. Then this takes us to the Note 5 commitments and contingencies, which I kind of spoke about earlier. This section kind of goes through that whole idea of what's going on, the relationship between the city and the district and the operating agreements and kind of the district's potential liabilities or future operating costs may look like based upon what those agreements are currently with the city. And so this gives a little bit more detail about the total of the bonds, which was $75 million, but then that's allocated out to the upgrade and rehabilitation project and the capacity project. So you see those breakdowns here, splitting out the costs, and then that $19 million is what got allocated between the city and the district in terms of the capacity project to come up with that $12 million that is the district's ownership and the capacity of that project. The bottom half of this page actually goes into just the upgrade and rehabilitation component of the bonds payable. And so that's broken down into the future payments that would have to be made by the city towards those bond payments. And then, of course, a portion of that is allocated to the district through the operations. And on page...
So page 11, the debt payable on page 11, is that just the expansion budget?
So this is just the capacity, but only the portion that's specific to the district.
So the expansion part, right,
Yeah.
right, okay.
So, because there was the upgrade and rehabilitation component and the capacity project,
Right.
which was the part that you have an ownership in.
So this is our ownership, this is our capacity on page 11, and then page 12 is the total.
On page 12, it just has the upgrade and rehabilitation project component. And so this is currently, it's been paid down to 43 million from the original 55. And so the city passes through operations, a portion of this also to the district, but it's passed through operations as opposed to true debt service for you, because you're really just paying them for servicing the overall system.
It's just the way the contract is set up.
Right.
They're the ones who actually own the debt, and we just have a contract with them to pay a portion of it.
Right,
Through
because
operations.
through the operations, because they're facilitating the operations of the plant and paying the debt service on the plant as part of that operation.
Right.
And then on page 13, you kind of get a better idea of what's composed into what the city is passing through in terms of the cost to the district. And so you see total costs that they had for the joint operations of the project, and then what was getting allocated out to the district and the district share. And then if you took this $3.7 million, you could follow that all the way back up to page 3, where you would see the operating expense allocation from the city of Ukiah, and matches to that $3.7 million of operating costs. So that's what got allocated through in 2018, fiscal year 2018, for the operating costs from the city to the district.
I followed you. You followed, here we go. I got you. All right. Okay.
So that's kind of how that flows back up in, but these are the most important components because they're really the biggest items that are sort of occurring, and with the relationship with the city and the city running the wastewater treatment plant. It's really sort of the most critical component of how this all comes together. Then back on page 14, this is where we get into the things that kind of occurred subsequent to the end of fiscal year 2018, when the district entered into the settlement. And this due from City of Ukiah kind of explains the general idea of what the settlement was and how that impacts the district, as well as going into kind of what the cash payments are and when those are supposed to be paid out to the district as well. And then the final footnote is really just a subsequent event footnote saying, hey, letting the reader of the financial statement know that significant events occurred subsequent to the date of these financials, which was June 30, 2018. And this is this is what those significant events were, which were the settlement agreement as well as the operating agreement that was entered into at the same time as the settlement agreement, which had an impact on how all of this was really reported. So those are kind of the significant items throughout the financial statements. I can definitely talk a little bit more about certain aspects if you'd like me to go into it, but those were the things that I really kind of wanted to point out in particular from what was included here.
So maybe, I think page 3,
Sure.
the overview of our income, our expenses, where we come out at the end of the year. I can see our net position at the beginning of the year and the end of the years. Maybe you could just go through this and just maybe each line and just explain each bolded, you know. So operating income, we're at a deficit of 39,000. So
Yeah, that would be really an operating deficit and a loss at that point. So when it did go,
so we're spending more than we're bringing in.
yes, you did spend more in this particular year, but that's where sort of seeing how this tracks each year and kind of understanding those components that are flowing into it make a difference, because there are certain things that are within this year's financial statements that aren't necessarily a regular occurrence.
Right. Gotcha.
And so understanding that some of those things won't always be there, you can see that, oh, okay, well, really, if we didn't have that, it would be positive. So, I mean, yeah, I can go through that. So the operating revenues, charges for service, that's of course the charges that are to the district customers. And then the connection fees would just be all of the fees that were collected by the city for the connection fees within the district customers as well.
Yeah, and I think that the service charges, those are a pretty constant number, but our connection fees are not a constant number. Sometimes they're high and sometimes they're really low.
Sure.
In the last 3 years, we went from 814 deficit in 16 to 624 in 17 to 39,000. So whatever's happening, it's been happening, but it's getting better.
Lawsuit. So, but it's good to see $1.2 million in connection fees.
And the operating expenses, salaries and benefits are really, those do not include contractors. So that flows through services and supplies. So that's why you would only see the employees who are actually employees of the district are flowing through that number. Any contractors of the district are going through services and supplies. And then those are the two areas where those are direct district costs. And then you get into the city of Ukiah allocation, which is all of the expenses that they have on their books that then they allocated out to the district. And then of course your legal expense, and then depreciation and amortization, which is just all of the capital asset section. There's depreciation associated with that, and so that's flowing back into the financial statements as well to get to your total operating expense for the year.
And just for that, the depreciation is not a cash item.
That is correct.
Right, so you would take that deficit, you can add that back for, get your cash.
What do we own that depreciates? I don't think we really owned anything.
So if you went to...
Pipes in the ground.
So on page 10, if you look at those, you can actually see it's separated. Everything that is actually owned is either depreciating or amortizing out. So really it's all of the land improvements and the trunk lines and the lateral lines, the buildings, the machinery and equipment that you own. That's all depreciating, and then the intangible assets amortizing. So
those are through the city though, those aren't our direct.
no, those are yours. So there would, these are the district-owned assets, and then the city owns different assets. So they don't include these assets in their books. So these are the ones that are specifically owned by the district.
Now, I'm kind of still stuck on this intangible asset. Can you give me another definition of the intangible asset?
So it's an intangible asset because it's not really like a physical thing. You don't actually own a building. You don't own a piece of equipment. What you own is the rights to this capacity. So it's not tangible. It's not something that you can really like take and move over here. It's just something that you have an ownership of. And there's value to it, but it's not like a physical asset.
Okay.
So that's what that 1.7 is, capacity, intangible
You mean
asset?
it's 1.3, it's 12 million is the intangible asset.
And below that is.
Oh, you're talking about
Under the depreciation.
So yeah, so if you went down the page, what this is accumulated depreciation. So in the first column, that's what the accumulated depreciation or amortization was at the beginning of the year. And then the additions are the depreciation or amortization that occurred during the year. So this 333,000 is what you see on page 3. That's flowing through the depreciation and amortization there. And then you have the total accumulated depreciation and amortization in the final column for June 30, 2018. So that totals down and then gives you what the net value of your capital assets are at this point in time. The depreciation is an estimate. It's not a precise tool, so that doesn't mean that that's what the real value of it is, but it's an accounting tool that's used to estimate what it is based upon the life of that particular asset. So did you want me to continue to go back through the page 3? The rest of it's just non-operating revenues and expenses, and those are just the items that really aren't part of your operations, and so they get segregated out into that other section, because there are some taxes and assessments that come through the County of Mendocino, and then of course your interest income from the cash that you have with both the city at the time and the county as well. And then there was just a small amount of other types of revenues that came through that really aren't significant to the district, but they're there too, and of course the interest expense. Now this interest expense is specifically only the interest related to the long-term debt that's shown in this financial statements. It does not include the interest that would have been passed through by the city. That's included up in your operating expense because that's through operations, that when they're passing through any debt service interest, that's through there. And you would see that, I think it's on page 12 again, what the breakdown is of kind of, page 13, where it kind of goes through what got allocated during that particular year. So you would see principal and interest from their debt that got allocated through operations there.
Okay. Debt service interest. Total joints 2 million and district shares 1 million. Debt service principal 763,502 for the district.
And that 4752, is that going to be changing at all? Do you know? It's 47.
So it does change between these financial statements,
Right.
Because that was based upon the ESSUs at that particular point in time. And so there was a report that was prepared for each of those fiscal year ends that said what the ESSUs were and how it was allocated, and that's where that percentage came from. But I guess, I think that there is still a component of that in terms of how it goes forward, but I believe it's changed a little bit in terms of the way that it's going to be applied.
Applied, yeah. I mean, in one scenario, unless you did something different with the bonds and fixed the debt, it still is a variable component going forward, so it will change based on that calculation. Or some variation on the calculation.
Yeah, and it didn't fluctuate all that much between each of the statements in terms of what the allocation
Yeah, I
was.
understand it is based on the SSUs, and that's what's currently what we've got. The ratio that we have.
Any questions? Does anyone from the gallery have any questions? Yes.
Does the depreciation expense go into a reserve account? Is it the reserve account? or not?
So right now, the district is not putting any cash into a reserve account to fund the depreciation. That is something that the district could choose to do though if they wanted.
In other words, so they'd have the money to repair the stuff when it gets.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else? Mark?
Well, I think these financial statements have been sent to our audit firm. Jeff has forwarded all those off to them. We spoke with the audit firm last week. I think they're digging in. They have a pretty full and complete package, yes. And they'll get started. I think they'll coordinate the questions initially with you, or maybe the city as well.
Yeah, so I've provided them with everything that I can provide them up to this point. Occasionally they will ask me here and there a question. I know that they plan on reaching out directly to you if they haven't already, in terms of some information that they need specifically for the audit. And because usually there's some inquiries and things that have to occur with board members and such to get a better understanding of the internal controls and things that are going on. So, so they will be, if they haven't already, reaching out to you for some of those types of things. And generally coordinating stuff through myself, but I will also be having them contact the city for anything specifically that needs to come from the city because much of the information comes from there. So I'm hopeful that a lot of that they won't really have to do much with since they've already audited it. So they should be able to kind of rely on their audit that they performed of the city and over the wastewater fund there to be able to say, okay, well, we've already looked at all of these expenses and now we're just looking at this allocation here and we're done with that piece of it, which is a huge component of the overall expense for the district. And so,
Which is one of the reasons we wanted to use them.
so there is some benefit there to that. And I've also been talking to them through our process as well to make sure that as we were making decisions on how certain things should be presented, that they agree with that treatment. And so my understanding is unless something comes up, they agreed with how we put everything together as well.
Okay. Their letter says April. This is that,
Oh, you know, that was in addition, then when we did the engagement, they had all sorts of, what they'll tell you what to provide and the board needs to provide, and this was an addition to that letter. And I think it basically tells the board that they have the right to contact the auditors directly if there is perceived, I think, some risk issues. So it's a statement of the board's rights to go directly to them. As the auditors.
yeah, it says they began their audit in
Yeah.
January and issue their reports no later than April, so.
Oh, yeah, as Jeff said, everything, especially since they had some discussion on beforehand, they should know quite a bit of what's in there with the city. Hopefully that they'll be able to make that April date.
Yeah.
So.
And we continue to work with Jeff's firm for how long?
Well, as long as the district decides that they want to do that. We opened that up, so they put up CLAs. Jeff can speak to this in more detail, but it's going to be putting together the monthly statements and then put the financials together at year end, not this dissimilar to what they've done here, then they will turn those over to the auditors. So hopefully this will be, by then, most of the issues and all the presentation stuff should be pretty well ironed out, so it should be a pretty straightforward process, I would guess.
Yeah, absolutely, and as we move forward too, please feel free to reach out to me, because we want to make this as useful for you as possible. And if there's other things that, other reports or anything else that you'd like to incorporate in, or, anything that you think is important for you guys to see on a regular basis, we're happy to work with you to incorporate that into what we're doing. That way, at CLA, we're always trying to make sure that we're providing opportunities for our clients and making sure that we're giving them everything that they need, because really, that's the most important thing to us, is that we're serving you appropriately, and we don't want to just be giving you this thing that isn't useful to you. So please let us know if there's anything more we can do.
And I would add that in the operating agreement, there's a requirement that the city and the district trade financial information. I think it's after 6 months. And so there will be an income statement, I think, and a balance sheet. If I remember correctly how all that.
There was a little bit of a debate on exactly when that was going to kick off, because according to my initial clock, it was as of the end of January.
Right.
But I think that there's some things that haven't been ironed out that might have delayed when that actually starts.
Okay.
But I'm looking at it as if I'm supposed to be starting to deliver that information now. So we're just putting all of that together. I've actually already gotten a lot of the information from the city as well, which we're not required to prepare that to be back to them, of course. It's really just the information from the district specifically that they don't have that we would prepare to provide back to them. But my hope would be that we just have a process so that each month we're getting this information, and then by about the 10th of the next month, we're able to prepare something similar, just like a balance sheet and a P&L, basically, to deliver to you guys that shows where you're at for the month, but also year to date kind of a thing, so that then at the end of the year, you've already been looking at that information throughout the year, and then so there's nothing surprising about what you see in the year-end financial statements either.
Mm-hmm.
And Alan will be part of that, of course. Yeah.
Any questions? There's City of Ukiah here. Do you have any comments or? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks,
Joe.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Finally got something.
Wow.
That's good.
It's a relief to have these and have the audit started.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Wow, what a relief. Okay. And Chelsea, are these online?
Not yet. I'm gonna have vote on put them on.
Okay,
So
so
they
these,
make a
Excuse me.
meltdown.
so these will be available on the district website soon. Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, moving on. Item number 4, discussion and possible action regarding approval of Oak Manor project. So I will tell you what I know about this project. Hopefully the city can tell us something as well. But I don't have, so I got an email from Ernie just before this meeting who had a copy of the Gelati proposal, which I printed out for everyone. I don't have anything from the city that states how much they expect the district to pay of these expenses. So I don't know. I know we would have to pay 100% of the, if you look under, it says sanitary sewer system, that would be replacing the pipes, so that would be 100% district. And the situation is the city is putting in purple pipes. So they're digging up the street to put in purple pipes. And while that's dug up, it's more cost efficient to replace everything now than to wait till it's needed and then you pay to have the entire street repaved again, right? So Water's getting replaced, sewer, purple pipe, I think electricity as well, I thought. Is there electricity going under?
Yeah.
Yeah, electricity as well. Chelsea, I know I requested that you ask the city for some information our last special meeting that was canceled, and then again this time. Did you?
Never received anything. I
Did you?
emailed Sean on Monday morning and he'd have a response back from him. And then the last regular meeting or the special meeting that was canceled, I emailed him and I believe he didn't respond either, or else I would have the information with me.
So, I mean, this is a project that clearly we want to move forward with, but we just don't have the information here to.
I talked to Ernie last week and he wanted the proposal from Gelati, but he didn't ask for the breakdown, which we actually did this afternoon. So if you guys want it, we have it, so.
Well, it's not getting approved without it.
Yeah, so
I'll tell you that.
That's so kind of the issue that I had off conversation on the Director of Public Works for the city of Ukiah, that Ernie was concerned about is we were also adding in the cost of the asphalt, which we do to all the utilities. And that's how we had it calculated when we thought it was a regular project. Anybody? And so we broke it down for what the actual cost of the district would be is the 706. So that's all the sewer stuff. The portions that you would have issue with, I would think you might have a problem with is you're paying for a portion of the asphalt that's over the pipes, and you're also paying for the mobility of the contractor and the what are the two things, mobility and
Curbing
no,
the TMC.
yes, and traffic control, which is fair. We're doing the same thing to all the other utilities. So that's the breakdown of how that would break down to the sewer share of those items.
So this first page is
So this
the
first,
district share.
yeah, that's the district share. There is no city share as far as the sewer.
So, because
So this is all. This is what we were going to pay originally out of the sewer joint fund, but now it's not a joint activity anymore. It's only a district activity. We pay for all those things separately.
Right. So since I'm not a construction worker,
No,
and
yeah,
since we just got this,
Sure.
I need some things explained.
Okay.
So I understand pipes, laterals, and manholes.
Right. That's,
But before we go through this, I do want to go through this. I have one question. How old are the pipes that are there now? And what are the life expectancy of those pipes?
they're past their life expectancy. So those are when that subdivision was put in, those pipes were put in.
And when was that?
The 60s, yeah.
The 60s?
Yeah.
And so those pipes are made out of what?
They're made out of asbestos. So the same thing that the water lines in that area are.
So they're 100% asbestos,
Concrete.
asbestos concrete.
so it's concrete, okay.
It's not the kind of concrete you're thinking.
But yeah.
It's like a fiber sort of. It's asbestos. It sounds bad, but actually most of the water lines in town are also made out of the same thing. So
Okay.
it's only bad when you're sawing it up and it's friable. It's not bad when it's
When your water's flowing through it.
right.
I'm gonna take.
Or your sewers. It's really not bad when your sewers.
Okay,
But they
so
do
like I said,
degrade.
I'm not a
So that's the problem, that's what happened on the Spina, same kind of pipes, they degrade, especially soda is the worst thing that degrades those pipes. And
Are those the same kinds of pipes that were in Despina?
Yeah.
Okay.
These are 50, 60 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
The other thing that the district is getting out of this, that's kind of a good thing, and we did this with Loose Observatory, we've done this with all the other ones, is we're replacing the laterals. They're actually the customer's laterals, but we're also adding a clean out in the sidewalk, so if there's ever a problem, we know either it's the customers or it's the main line. So that's a nice feature, we're doing that. We still haven't really determined that the lateral is either the property, well, we know right now the laterals are the property owners. But if we ever go to the laterals in the street being the district, the city, we have that ability because we're putting that clean out in the sidewalks.
So you're taking the lateral, so from the main to the sidewalk, or from the main to their house?
To the sidewalk.
To the sidewalk. And right now, that lateral from the sidewalk to the main is the property owners? That's what you're saying?
From the house to the main is the property.
Is the property owners, okay. So are they being charged for that, or that we're just making an investment in that and then we're putting in the?
Right, that's how we did it on the other ones, that's what we were gonna do here. Ultimately, the problem is, for a property owner to replace the lateral through their roses is not very expensive. It's a couple $100, $1,000 at the most. For them to go through the concrete, through the asphalt to the main is really expensive. Like $10,000 or $6,000. And so when we have this opportunity, it's the time to fix that, even if it's still their issue. The reason it's a good idea to leave it their issue is laterals are where a lot of overflows happen. If it's a private lateral, all the way to the main, somebody puts an apple down the toilet, clogs it up, we don't have to pay a fine if it overflows.
Ah, gotcha.
If it's ours, yours, anybody, a district or any sort of agency, then you do have to pay a fine.
Gotcha.
So that's
Okay.
why it's kind of good to leave it as a private lateral.
Okay. So the asphalt would be the sidewalk?
No, the street.
The street, oh, sorry, the
Right.
street. The asphalt's the street portion.
The concrete,
So the asphalt, are we paying,
you're paying for over the top of the pipe and 3 feet on each, or 3 feet total. So a 3-foot swath over the pipe. Not paying for the laterals, we didn't do a calculation for the laterals, we're just paying for the asphalt for the pipe.
so does each utility pay for over their pipe and 3 feet each way? So does it
3
work
feet
out to
total.
be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3?
3 feet total, yes,
So electricity, water, sewer,
and purple pipe.
purple.
All 4 of those are paying the same asphalt.
So we all pay 25% of the total cost?
Well, no, because then there's further outside than that would only be 12 feet, right? 2 times 4, so that's not the whole street. So the rest of the street is being paid for by Measure Y.
Okay. Grants. Okay. So asphalt is the road, and this includes, this is total cost, labor and,
Is there?
okay, materials? Okay. And then the concrete is the sidewalks?
So the concrete is where we would be tearing up the sidewalks, put in that facility for the,
Cleanup.
for the cleanup, yeah.
Okay.
And curbing gutters where we're soft cutting through the curbing gutter
So the cleanout's going in where the sidewalk is?
in the sidewalk.
In the sidewalk.
So it'll be just like a water box. So we're putting the water box on one side and the clean out on the
So
other
if
side.
something does go down the toilet, it would back up right there.
Right there.
I wonder, is it possible to just put it on the other side of the sidewalk?
The problem with that is every sidewalk is different and sometimes there's not sidewalks and if the crews go out there, it's nice to know it's right there. We don't have to like wonder what's behind the rose bushes, if the fence is built up to the back of the property line. So, I talked to the crews who maintain this stuff, I said, where would you guys want it? They're like dead right in the sidewalk. And I'm like,
Okay.
you guys are the ones who do it at 2 in the morning? Sounds good to me.
And these are tiny expenses, but I don't know what a lower iron or a razor.
So so each, basically it's a manhole.
Oh, okay.
So they have to take that out and then they lower it. And then when they come back in and pave it, they raise it back to the grade of the road. So
Gotcha.
they're kind of small, but we just,
And then,
so
mob and TC.
mobility, moving all their equipment in, and the traffic control, which is kind of sensitive in that area because of The school, that's actually we have it right here, that's, so 7% of the project cost for mobility and traffic control is gonna be applied to the sewer. So we did that based on the project cost for each utility.
Okay,
So 7%, so that 25,291 is 7% of the total mobility and traffic control.
okay.
How long do you think this project will take?
Well, it's electric, it's always causing the problems, and so they just awarded their bid, or they just opened bids today, so they're gonna be the last one. So once they're done, then we're gonna pay the whole thing. Right now, they're working on the triple
Yeah,
pipe.
the sewer portion will take about 4 weeks.
4 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we don't do this and we have one of these 50 or 60-year-old pipes collapse like Despina, it would be a huge expense. So it is a good investment for us to do this now. And then Ernie, everybody respects his opinion because he is a contractor. He was all in favor of this as well, that it was reasonable costs and it was a good investment for the district. So just want to reiterate that for him as his proxy.
Okay.
Okay, so, the total cost, so we're looking for a motion.
I move
To-
to approve the bid for the Oak Manor project.
So we need to approve, the amount of money.
$6,148.
Are we approving this or this?
So this is only the bid from Gelati, and then what the city has done is they've taken that and broken it down into our direct cost,
So this
which is $706,145. So that is the amount of money we need to approve, and should it go over for any reason at all, you would just come back to us and ask for approval for any additional amount, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So the motion is to approve,
$706,145 for the Oak Manor project.
Second.
there's a motion and a second. And Chelsea, did you get that motion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.
I was really worried about this tonight because we didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to go on this, or.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't ask for comments from the gallery. Are there any? Any?
Perfectly reasonable expense, the way you described it.
Okay, thank you. So last item is discussion and possible action. This is only a discussion action, actually. Do you want to, Mark, just give us a 5-minute update on what happened with the bond payment last week?
Yeah, so during the course of the conversations to do the bond refinancing, there is some money that the city and the district have set aside to pay down the bonds. It was anticipated this was going to be done if the bond refinancing had taken place for this window we had on March 1st. That did not happen. So, meanwhile, we had some conversations about paying the bonds down with those funds. Anyway,
Paying down the principal.
paying the principal that we had with the money, I think it was roughly $4 million. Jeff may have that number in his head too, I think it's in the footnotes. And the district has a portion of that and the city has a portion of that. We reached out, talked to the city, they were fine with it. I talked to Dan to do that. Well, it turns out that the way the whole agreement was written, that all we needed, if I understand this correctly, and if Donald or Dave Rappaport was here, I'm sure there would be a much better answer. But basically, I think it was written in the agreement that the city and the district, either party could agree to do that during the bond refinancing, but the refinancing didn't take place. So the trustees, I believe, wanted to have motions by the city and motions, through the board process from the district authorizing to do that, and there just wasn't enough time.
But we gave our,
Well, they wanted a board, if I understand this correctly, actually a board meeting. We agreed to the operating agreement, but the trustee wanted a specific motion from the board. I believe from Dave Rappaport's email that since the city was the agent that could actually make the payment, the city also had to have authorization from the city council, and he had asked if he had specific authorization from
But
us.
they had our agreement. I mean, they had our acceptance.
They had the operating agreement, but the operating agreement, again, if I understand this correctly, I think stipulated it during the bond refinancing. There is no refinancing going on at this particular time.
Did you have direct conversations with the financial institution, or was that just,
That's all through
In a
the
letter.
city, that's all through the city. So basically, I sent an email to Dan. He said the city would be fine. He contacted the trustee, I believe it's Wells Fargo. And then subsequent to that, there was a letter from the Rappaport saying, well, guys, this really needs to be done, and it needs to be done in this way. And it was a series of, I think, authorizations that came from the city, and authorization came from the district. The district alone, they weren't going to.
Well, there's a time window here. I thought that we were going to we needed to meet that timeline, right?
Well, there's two timelines every year,
Right.
March 1st and October 1st. We know that we missed the March 1st for the bond refinance.
So what he's looking for is a separate motion to
So-
pay it when it's not in the bond refinancing
That's-
window.
It
So
would have
we
paid-
agreed to do it during the window, but that's not happening. So we're now need a separate motion to do it independently of the bond refinancing.
to pay down the principal of
Right.
the bond?
To pay down the principal of these funds that are set aside.
That were actually bond funds that are
Absolutely correct.
left over sitting in an account,
And the
earning
tr-
less interest than what we're paying for having them sitting there, right?
So there will be another opportunity during the bond refinancing or to do this at October 1st.
So we missed, for whatever reason, the window on that came up so quick that both sides missed it. And I think that was a huge blunder on both sides. I mean, why on earth would we not pay down the principal of the bond with money that's sitting there not earning interest? That's at least, you know what I mean? It's not a wash.
Can we make a motion on it now?
Well, it's gone
No, about
for October.
payment outside of the bond window. Refinancing
For
window.
October?
It would
No,
have to be.
aren't you looking for, to pay the money outside of the window? So not about October or anything else, this is completely independent of the refinancing.
Part of that is absolutely correct. It's independent of the
Right.
refinancing, but you can only do it at these two windows, March 1st and October
Gotcha.
1st. We can't do it May 1st or June 1st or pick a date. So we would have to deal with it prior to the October one coming up. It may be moot at that point because there may be bond refinancing, in which case when you did the refinancing, that would be paid down or be part of that whole package, so it wouldn't need to be separated out. Failing that going forward, then you would, I think, want to go take care of this and do that in a separate motion, get in front of it with the city. The trustees are going to be very particular about the instructions. The instructions, as I understand it, come from the city. They don't come from the district because the city is the holder of the bonds. That you're kind of under, do you have any other, yeah, you're fine, yeah. Yeah, there's nothing, yeah.
Yeah, it's not in our name. We
Yeah,
don't
right.
have control
Yeah.
over that.
I was just thinking about,
Yeah.
look at that, so.
So, July, August, we should be looking into this if we're not on the road to refinance because we can't get refinancing or it's not cost effective anymore. We should, at that point, the city and the district should be looking at taking that money and putting it towards,
Applying it to the principal, yes.
okay. All right, so let's put that on the calendar.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and then, yeah, maybe, you know, at subsequent meetings, if Dave, Rappaport or Donald have, you know, they may be able to add some additional information to that explanation. That was my understanding. I certainly don't pretend to be an attorney on this. I
Right.
have the details, which is my general.
And we are still, I believe, the city was looking into, was it Dan that was looking into it for us, the CFO, whether it's still
Economically
refinancing?
makes economic sense, yes, there was an analysis that I think will be coming out shortly.
Right.
Just to make sure that it all is So it makes economic sense going forward.
And that both sides agree it does, so that's in the works as well, so everybody knows.
Correct.
Okay. Anything from the gallery? Any comments, any public comments at this point? No. Okay, and then I just want board members to please pay attention to a handout you received. You have a board email address. You can contact Chelsea if you need help
I have
on
no idea.
accessing that or setting it up, which will, through our IT.
Photo, respect tech, yeah.
Okay, so our meeting is now adjourned at 7:14. Thank you.